Exception handling in PLSQL. While discussing PLSQL program structure, we came across different building blocks of a PLSQL program. In this lesson, we are going to see the exception block. This block is the final block in PLSQL programs. In a PLSQL program, there is an exception block, which is optional. This block is used by developers to raise and handle the exceptions effectively. Before we get into this lesson, I want my learners to know about exceptions. Let's start with the question, what is an exception? An exception is an error situation which arises during program execution. Generally, whenever an exception occurs in a program, the execution of the program is temporarily stopped, and control is given to the exception handling part. Exceptions can be in two types: a system-defined or predefined exception, or a user-defined exception. Each PLSQL program has its own exception section, in which exceptions can be handled. When any exception occurs in a PLSQL block, the execution section is terminated and control goes to the exception section. In PLSQL, every exception has an error number and an error message. These exceptions are divided into different types. Here we will see each of them in detail. First, we will see the systems-defined exceptions. These types of exceptions are predefined by the Oracle package. There is no need to declare these types of exceptions. Here we will see some of the predefined exceptions by Oracle. Here you can find the errors with their numbers. These error numbers are displayed when Oracle encounters any of these errors. We can handle these exceptions in our program by calling the error number of the exception. Here is the syntax of using the system-defined exceptions in a function. Take a look at this function syntax. You can find the syntax of a function with an error handling block. In the exception handling section, we can use the when clause to write the error handling statements. Here we can specify the exception name, and we can write the handling statements in the then clause. If the function encounters any errors, then the control is transferred to the exception handling section. In the exception handling section, we can write the statements to catch the exception. We write the exception handling statements in the then clause. Let's see it practically. See this function. Here we have written a function with an exception handling section. In this function, we are going to select the values from the table details. This function takes the serial number as input and takes that row from the table. In this function, an error may arise when the accepted row is not in the table. In this situation, we need to handle that exception. For this, we have written in the exception handling section to catch the exception with no data found, and we raised an error with its error number. Let's execute this function. Now we have created this function successfully. Let's call this function with the serial number, which is not present in that table. It shows an error as a result of this execution. Likewise, we can handle different errors in our PLSQL program. In this section, we are going to discuss the next type of exceptions in PLSQL programming, the user-defined exception. User-defined exceptions are declared by users. The user-defined exceptions are declared in the declaration block, and they are raised in the executable block. Let's see the syntax for declaring a user-defined exception. In this syntax, we can declare exceptions in the declaration section. Then the exceptions are raised in the executable section, and these exceptions are handled in the exception section. An exception cannot be declared twice in the same block. Exceptions declared in a block are considered as local to that block and global to its subblocks. Now we are going to see this practically. Look at this procedure. In the executable section, we have written an if statement to check the input value. If the input value is less than 100, then the user exception is raised. Otherwise, the value is selected into the name variable, and that value gets printed on the screen. In the exception block, we have written a statement to handle the exception by raising an application error. In this statement, we have specified an error number. Let's see the use of this raise application error statement. This statement is a built-in statement which is used to raise our own error message. The error number should be between 20000 and 20999, and the error messages should be a maximum of 512 characters. I hope you understand exceptions and their types. I hope you all understand exception handling and types. In this lesson, I have shown some of the most important exceptions. I want my listeners to search more error numbers and know more about them. With this note, we are coming to the end of this lesson.